Hello and welcome to a new episode of International Corner. Today we got lots to talk about, the Derby d'Italia, the Ballon d'Or and then Empoli-Inter. But here today with me again, there's Richard Hall. Hello, Richard.
Hello, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Wow, so many games, so much to talk about. It's always good to be back with you, of course.
Welcome back. Listen, I've got to tell you something. So I watch a game of football and I have somebody always interrupting me so much so that I even missed a goal. Can you guess who that person is?
Well, I have absolutely no idea, and I don't want to even guess.
It's you texting.
I know. Before we even start, I have got many apologies.
What's the first one?
I don't know. There's I get frustrated and I message you straight away because but also when I'm happy as well, which is more times I'm happy than I'm not.
No, you've got to know. You've got to know, guys, that Rich is the opposite of what Italians would do during a football match. And I'd say probably anybody is the eternal optimistic, which is good, but we are very scaramantic in a way. So we don't say anything until it's about to go down with the final whistle, right? And he's then texting, yeah, it's getting our way, yeah.
Well, I know as well, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because when Fratesi scores, and we'll come to it, I know, but when Fratesi scores, I'm like, that's it, we're good, we've got this game, it's done. Yeah. And you're like, no, don't say it.
Don't say it, don't ever say it, don't even think it. I mean, you shouldn't even think about it, to be honest with you, don't say it. But saying is even over the top. But no, it's all good. I like Richard for that, because he's always optimistic and he's like my guru for positive vibes, let's say. Good. So,
try.
Speaking of positive vibes, we've come from a very, very intense week. A week that started with the Derby d'Italia. Derby d'Italia went down in very good fashion, let's say, because it's a Derby d'Italia that recorded some firsts. You know, a 4-4 is not, doesn't happen so many times, so many goals, so many different scorers. So, I mean, it was a tough match, an intense match, something that we all look now and say, oh, maybe, you know, we should have been more like this, we should have been more like that. The team should have pulled off different situations differently. There were a lot of chances, but all in all, if you think about where we started, do you remember last time when we talked about the progression and how we did so far this season? And if we remember what the words of Mr. Inzaghi were about the Derby d'Italia, he said that, and derbies in general, a derby is something that it either goes one way or the other. It's something that teams can find that extra energy and just pull something off that maybe you weren't expecting. And that's, I think, is just the case. What's your take on that epic game? In my opinion, I was there watching it, and it was probably one of the, it was breathtaking, let's say.
I completely agree with you, and what Inzaghi said as well about the derbies, because at the end of the day, you know, these games are epic. They can either bring out a dull 0-0 because two teams are very cautious, or in this case, a ridiculous scoreline. I think that you can look at Inter and look at the qualities and what we actually produced there, and I think I've been sort of keep talking about the fighting spirit that we have and that we've continued to have, and that includes this game. But you know, when we look back in history, we will do one day. It sounds strange to say so now. We'll look back at this as being one of the great derbies, and sometimes in football, that's the whole reason probably we're all in this doing what we do, is because we love football so much. And football sometimes, you know, with all the greatest thought process in the world and everything you want to have, it throws up these games, and they're amazing. And I mean, for a neutral, it would have been unbelievable to watch. It's a great advert for Serie A, but also as well, I think with Inter as well, what we can take is that again, the fighting spirit. There's so many different performances I'm sure we're going to go on to talk about in that game that we can be positive about, and I think will hold us in good stay for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm pretty happy.
I agree with you. The positives are, of course, that we created a lot. And there's something else that a player said, and that's Jan Sommer, that he said a while ago. I think it was just before the interview, just before the Young Boys match for the Champions League. He said, maybe it's not like we are lacking in something. Maybe what we have been doing so far and last season, which was something that not many teams could find a way through. Maybe teams have found a way to beat us in defense and to see a way to stop us, you know? Maybe that's just the case. In my opinion, these numbers that I'm about to tell you are probably what can demonstrate that actually we are creating a lot. And creating a lot means, of course, that you're shifting players from one position to another position, of course. So into Juventus, we had 18 shots, expected goals of 2.83 and 13 corners by the Nerazzurri. Of course, we had Di Gregorio, the goalkeeper of the Bianconeri, that did an amazing job in saving. We had Barella with his attempts, with shots on target, Lautaro. I mean, it was pretty unlucky that sometimes these shots didn't make it through. I remember watching it. We had like 5 consecutive corners, and it was unbelievable. We were just, okay, it's gonna go. Di Marco is gonna try again. But no, it didn't happen. But that's just unfortunate because Di Gregorio did 5 saves. 5 saves, It's a lot. I mean, and if you look at that match as well, Denzel Dumfries, one that created a lot in attack, where maybe last season he was shifting more on the flanks. You know, as we say, the esterni shift more towards the back. What's your take on that?
No, massively. Just 2 points on that. I think one, when you're talking about the opportunities we create in the derby, I think that if we're going to look at it in a positive way, which obviously I do, I think that we're going to look at that and think, you know what, it was a crazy game, and we came out with it with a good point, and it puts us still in good stead, especially what we'll go on to talk about with Empoli. Moving on from that, I think that, you know, Juventus will probably go away from that thinking, wow, we were lucky, if I'm honest. That's my personal point of view, and that's no specific bias. I think that's just watching the game. I think moving on to that, I think when you look at the fact of Dumfries there and the role he's playing, he's certainly more pivotal in what we're doing moving forward. And I think that goes into what you were saying about Jan Sommer, in the sense of you can see in this team now that, don't get me wrong, it's in every single champion. People want to beat the champions. Of course they do. And so they're going to look for different ways to do it. And therefore, Mr. Inzaghi has to come up with a response. And I think that he is doing in a lot of ways. And I think the way Dumfries is now being more of a target to take, not pressure off Di Marco, but almost give an extra option, is working really well. And I think you can see there's other elements in the team that are doing that as well. So, yeah, it's a progression. It's going to be a very close season this season, but, you know, we're still very much in this, absolutely. And with the strength and depth of the squad, which we showed obviously against Young Boys, we've got the will to win and the squad to cope with it. So I know you say I'm optimistic, but why wouldn't I be?
You should be. We just saw Piotr Zielinski there scoring one of the 2 penalties, and of course first brace for the Polish midfielder in Nerazzurri, but that's not the only contribution he gave, and he's been given to the team, considering that of course was the first time he was in the starting 11 but entered the season. So it's been a showcase of a great performance from somebody who can give a lot, as Inzaghi said many times. He's very versatile in that, and I'm happy we have another player that is ice cold and taking shots from the 12 yards. What don't you think about that?
Of course, when you look at obviously Hakan not being there, Zielinski, you know, he does give something different. He's not the same. Of course, he's not going to be the same. But what he does is give experience, a quality. And I think that Inter have had this ability to do this over the last couple of seasons, of getting these players in that can just go straight into the squad. And I think it's a massive, massive asset of what the club's doing as a whole, to bring these players in who can hit the ground running. Because at the moment we are champions and we have to keep that momentum. And I think bringing players of that quality and that class with that mentality just really, really show, like I said before, why we're so strong in depth, and it will go a long way to us hopefully getting into the Scudetto.
Yeah, and the hunger of the players is very, very strong. And Piotr Zielinski himself said in the post-match interviews that it's about time that the team now takes what's done positively in this match and works towards doing even better in the following matches coming up. Let's hear his words after the Derby Italia.
Tutti quanti speravamo di vincere questa partita, alla fine non siamo riusciti Ci è mancato poco perché da 4-2 la partita sembrava essere indirizzata per la vittoria, però purtroppo ci è mancato il gol che chiudeva la partita definitivamente e siamo un pochino delusi su quel punto di vista perché la partita doveva essere vinta. Abbiamo fatto tantissime cose buone, anche in secondo tempo potevamo fare 2-3 gol in più. Creiamo tanto, però dobbiamo migliorare sicuramente fase di non possesso e non far partire così facile le azioni avversarie.
For the first time in the history of the Serie A match between Inter and Juventus has seen 5 goals scored during the first half. I mean, that tells you a lot about that match. And Piotr Zielinski is, in fact, the first player to score a brace by penalty in matches between Inter and Juventus in Serie A since this data has been available. So I was telling you about those numbers, those records about the Derby d'Italia, something never seen before. Dumfries as well as commented on how the performance should have really given favor to Inter. Let's hear what he had to say.
The game plan was to keep them as far as possible from our goal because they on front they have quality and the one against one. But you know that you will consider some counter attacks. But yeah, we had to do better with all the goals and yeah, unfortunately it was not going on our side and we have to keep continuing, working and do better. The season is very long. We have a lot of games. Of course, it's still close, everything. We have them in a few matches, but before we have to win the other matches. But I think in the beginning of the season, it's not really that you have to look, especially to the rank, but especially that you look to yourself. What can you do better? What can we improve? And that is something we speak every day about.
I agree with Denzel Dumfries when he says that it's still the beginning of the season and it's still early to judge what the teams are how they're going to emerge like in the rest of the season. Obviously, we've seen Inter, Juventus and Napoli doing really well. So the top ones that have winning more matches, getting more points. What's your take on how the balance of the Serie A is panning out so far?
As Inzaghi said, that the derbies always a game that can be, it's difficult to call. And so from there on, like I mentioned before, it's really worthwhile focusing on the next game. And Denzel Dumfries right. It's about marginal gains, Kaizen theory, that sort of little extras that we can get to the next stage. I don't think that it's really worthwhile looking at the end of the season right now because we are early. Napoli have had a great start. Juventus are in transition, even though I don't like that word I've mentioned before. But Inter, for me, have that strength in depth. And when we've utilised the squad already this season, we know that everybody we call on can step up to the plate because they've had minutes. So that, for me, is the most important thing because it's going to be a long season. There'll be injuries, which we already know. And it's about those squad players are going to be key for me in the season. And that's where I think we have the edge.
It's exactly like you said, but before the team got back to the Serie A, there was an amazing moment for Inter when the 68th edition of the Ballon d'Or took place, which saw Manchester City, Rodri taking the prize. And we'll talk about him maybe a little bit later. You have something in common with him, I think.
I'm not sure what. I've not won anything. Are you going to give me an award? Am I injured? I don't know.
No. But think about it while I go through the next bit I've got to say now. So, of course, we had 3 players for Inter who flew to Paris to take part to the ceremony. Jan Sommer was amongst the 10 best goalkeepers. He came 6th. Then, of course, Aki Çalhanoğlu, who came 20th, and our own Lautaro Martinez, who came 7th, a first time for him in the top 10. And the whole ceremony, of course, is very prestigious, and it's been obviously a situation where you see some of the greatest players of all time, not just, of last season, the year before, is the greatest players of all time. And the fact that we have some of our players amongst the top 7 is, amazing. You know your facts, your story about Inter players in the past that have won it, and can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, you just like these stories of nostalgia because I show my age, basically. But Yeah, I remember going back way back when we're talking. I have to just reference this now. The Ballon d'Or in 1990. Again, focusing on my childhood, and we've mentioned it before on here. Everybody who knows the podcast, obviously Inter podcast or this international corner, knows about my passion for the Nerazzurri in the early years. And 1990, Lothar Matthäus obviously winning that, but also you had some amazing players in that list. Salvatore Schillaci, but Andres Bremer, God bless him, came third in that. They had Paul Gascoigne, Franco Baresi, Enzo Schifo, who also had a tenure into, let's not forget. Jürgen Klinsmann came sixth. I mean, that's just a top six, and look at the interlinks. So you can see why my sort of pass with this competition always, it always makes me really proud when I see Inter players there. I think that, when you look at the players who were there, I mean, the way that Hakan has been this season, I mean, we could talk for hours about it. And the same with the other two. I'm the biggest Jan Sommer fan, I think, going with my affiliation to goalkeepers. I just think that he is class personified. And of course, Lautaro. I mean, for me, and I'm biased, of course, I would have had him, obviously doing everything he's done this season. I think every one of those players deserves those accolades. And it's great to see us represented in such a prestigious, award ceremony.
Yeah,
So,
Lautaro has had a great season as well last season. He was a Serie A top scorer. And we saw how much he's generous with what he does on the pitch. He's not selfish in thinking, I've got to be top scorer. He was giving the ball away to Chala to score penalties. And is always that. He's almost an assist man now as well, not just it's the whole chemistry as well that he has with Barella, with Di Marco, that really puts things into perspective. How big of a captain you are on your team is not just you're just the last man and just put a ball in. It's a bit different. There's more to it, don't you think?
Massively. And I've written about this as well. And I'm really a strong believer with Lautaro that what's interesting is we can look back throughout history and you can look at partnerships and you can say, oh, I remember when X and Y played really well together. But when you look at Lautaro, since he turned up at Inter, he's had various different partnerships. And I think his biggest benefit is getting the best out of the player that he's played with. And those players have come on and done fantastically well. And he's had maybe, I mean, I could name 6 or 7 right now, strike partnerships that he's had to deal with. And I would say that all of them benefit from playing with Lautaro. So Lautaro could be, for me, he's the perfect embodiment of what Inter are doing in the sense of the way he's quite selfless because he does just give. In the sense of, like I said before, he's got so many partners that he's played with and given to them to elevate them in their status. If he was more selfish, would he have more goals? I don't know, but look at the amount of goals he's got. He seems to be able to do both, and that for me is just something quite incredible, to be fair.
And he's rather humble as well. He's always really humble in what he says, always taking responsibilities for how the team went and the overall performance. Another humble person, and I was referring to Rodri. Have you worked out why he's a bit like you in the end? No.
I haven't got it.
So have you read that Rodri went to university and nobody at uni knew that he played football? He wasn't in the first team yet, but nobody at uni knew, and he was already playing for a big club and already being a professional. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know this.
So he went to uni. Nobody knew. He still has no social media. And then, of course, one night when he was first signed in the first team for Barcelona, his course mates saw him and said, "Hang on, that's the guy who takes the accounting course with us. What's he doing there?" Because obviously you got a different face, your zone out face or whatever you want to call it, and so. That's only when they understood that he was a professional footballer. And still now, he doesn't have any social media and that. So what I'm trying to say is that I didn't know, maybe you are a professional footballer, and I didn't know about it. No?
No.
No chance.
No. No, my footballing career is not something to be talked about.
So I'm not one day looking at the telly when I'm watching the Premier League. I say, hang on, that's bloody Richard Hall. No.
No, there's two things about this. Number one, my football career was semi-professional goalkeeper when I was 17. That's about as far as I ever got.
Right.
If Inter still want to give me a trial, I'm 44, I can still play. But the other thing is, someone said to me, you just look like every generic footballer ever.
Like a Dave. Like a Dave of football.
If I had headphones on and got off a coach, people would just accept him in the squad. Right. They just look like a generic footballer, but that's about as far as it goes. Now, listen, Rodri is an incredible footballer and deserves, his accolades. The facts of in the UK media, just his loss for Manchester City, is going to be huge this season. But look, we have our own players that are in there, like we said, and it's so good to see players, especially when like people like Hakan and Lautaro and Jan Sommer as well. I mean, I know I go on about Jan Sommer so much, but for me, I'm so confident. I mean, being like seamless link, playing in goal, I get nervous about goalkeepers, and I just the confidence that man has and the calm he must put to that defense is brilliant. So congratulations to all of them. It was a great result to see us represented.
And after the Ballon d'Or, the team had to go back. The 3 players mentioned had to go back to Milan and think about the next away game, which was the game against Empoli on a midweek day. So, I mean, and what a game it was. It started off as if, we've got to forget about the Derby d'Italia, whatever has been said and done. It's a new week, but it's not. It's only 2 days afterwards, really. And it started off a bit slow pace, and that's why you were worried, yeah? But then I heard Inzaghi shouting, you've got to speed up, be fast. Everyone heard that, so it's no secret, really. And I just saw Barella doing his fast passes and being everywhere, anywhere, all at once, and just starting the action, because again, Çalhanoğlu is injured, so we had him and Frattesi in midfield. And like you said, that's the way to react. That's the way to come back from a slight disappointment, I would say, from the Derby d'Italia, because things we all know could have gone differently, but they did it greatly on Wednesday night.
Yeah, massively. I mean, look what happened to Juventus after the derby.
You're right.
In
Almost forgot.
not gloating, I'm just saying. But it is about how you take the lessons, which Denzel said before in the interview. About taking those lessons and moving it forward, and that's what I think Inter did. I mean, I know I was messaging you about Frattesi as soon as he scored. I was like, I knew, I just that's it for me. We're good. I was confident, and it was a slow start. It wasn't the best, of course, but I think that what it showed is that grit and determination. Sometimes, I think when you set a bar so high as we did last season, it's not going to be the same this season. We are going to concede a few more goals. Teams will work us out. It's not going to be as easy. But what matters for me are performances, and I know it sounds silly, the young boys game was massive.
Yeah, because last season he was, he was the one who scored last-minute goals. So he was kind of the player you think, Frattesi is very good at intercepting when there's an opportunity, where there's a space that frees up, and he just is very good at getting himself there near the box and just go and shoot and get the goal. But I don't think it's just that, obviously, because this season with this so many games, there's more opportunities for everyone to actually have game time, and you can see how he's got that same chemistry and synergy with the other players, with Lautaro, Barella. I mean, it's got the same system in place, so there's more to him than that. The person that has the grit and the energy and it doesn't care and just finds the spot at the last minute and puts the ball in. Inter this season, actually not this season, in 2024, have won more away game than anybody else. 11 over 15 games played. Then you were talking about Lautaro and the Ballon d'Or. Last night, on Wednesday, he achieved another landmark, a massive milestone, because he's now up to 134 goals, taking over Stefano Nies. So he's now the 7th best striker in the history of Inter of all time. So, I mean, that's massive for him. And of course, we don't look at that just in numbers, but...
Well, it's huge. And the more I think about this, the bigger I think it is, because we've just spent part of the show talking about how selfless he is. And yet he's still up there. And you look at the names. I mean, I look at names, I always go back to childhood, but you can talk about people. I know his very brief spell with Jurgen Klinsmann, for instance, but it's important to mention that because he had such a big impact from when he was there. We can look at Ronaldo. We can look at all these different players. We can look at all of the foreign players throughout the club's history. And for him to have the accolade at still his age is incredible. And I just feel that his association with the club, I think his association with the city, it holds really, really does hold. And you said it before, he's humble. And when we look at like people like Zanetti, like Bergami, people who really embody what the club is, I think Barella could be another one of those players. That, you know, yes, Inter have had some fantastic flashy players, some diamonds, of course we have. But when you really look at the heart of Inter and you look at those players, Facchetti, and you look at Corso, you look at Zanetti, you can go all the way through. I think Martinez is in that mould. And, you know, it's more about the club than him. And yet to still be at those to have that marker now is incredible, because the names before him are something to behold. So, yeah, it's exciting to see just where he can get. Whether he can reach Miazza levels, I don't know, but still.
I don't know. I tell you one player that I'd like to see amongst the best in the world. I mean, for me, he's one of the best players we have. He's always... last year, I kept saying Mkhitaryan. I'm not saying Mkhitaryan this year is not shining, because he is. He's just scored as well in the game against Juventus. But for me now, this year, the one that stands out is Barella. I don't know, he's so energetic, you can see technically how good he is. He's fast, he's precise, he has the creativity, he can set the game how he wants it, he can start on the break, he can set the pace. And of course you were talking about Lautaro and the fact that he's one of the symbols, one of the players that are settled in well with the team. He represents the black and blue spirit. But if you think about it, I'm going to give you one number, and that's the fact that there are 12 assists by Barella to Lautaro. Yeah? So, I mean, that tells you how the chemistry is present between the two. And Barella in total has reached 50 active participation in Serie A, 16 goals and 34 assists. And 12 of those were for Lautaro. So, I mean, you cannot always say this guy is really good. No, it's always the combination of what happens on the pitch between this guy and the other guy, one player and the other player, and how well they communicate. And so, in an interview, they said, Frattesi said as well, that he tries these moves with the Lautaro, the fact that he's there in that position is something automatic. They know he's there. He knows he's there. He knows the position. He doesn't need to look. So that's, I think, these movements and these dynamics are something that maybe at the start of the season were not fully settled, yeah. But I think now, in games like Empoli, where you are in advantage, you have found your grounds, your confidence, you go, okay, now we can start doing that. We know what to do. Let's do it. And that, if you can do it once, then you can keep doing it for the rest of the season.
Yeah, when we talk about Barella, I mean, I don't mean to always go back to nostalgia, but when we talk about Lothar Matthäus, one of my heroes, I think that when you look at a player with that work rate, that intelligence, and I think what's most important about Barella is the maturity. The link between him and Lautaro, for want of a better word, is the fact that they both give everything for the team, and the team comes before themselves, which again, I think is really rare and goes back into what we were saying before about the embodiment of what it is to be Inter. Listen, those guys, as you rightly say, have almost got this telepathic situation now where they know where each other are. And that comes from hard work. That doesn't just happen. But they both are immensely talented players. Barella, what I like about him, and I would also say what we're seeing a little bit with Frattesi as well, is the fact that they're not scared. They can make something out of nothing. They're not showboating. They're not trying to do something to impress. Most of the times, like you said, with the assists, they do the right thing. Same with Lautaro, do the right thing. And that's paying benefits. But sometimes when we've got nothing and it's really difficult, those players can create something from nothing and have that ability. And I think we've seen that with Barella a couple of times this season. And every so often we just see one of those wonder goals from him. And where he can go.
But he almost scored a wonder goal against Juventus as well. It's just it just didn't go in that ball. But yeah, I think, like I said, to me, this season is the one that I always pay attention to when he's got the ball. It's like, look how good he did really well. And every time I'm the one commenting, he's the one I'm commenting on. So now the Serie A is not, is not so fixed. It's nothing there on paper because, of course, it's still at the beginning of the season. What we know for sure is that on Sunday we've got another game. It's against Venezia. And then, of course, in the upcoming week, a massive game, Champions League at home against Arsenal. So if you think about how much we play, I'm almost getting confused what day it is. Obviously, there was the international break and we forgot to mention that completely because that was like 10 days ago, not even, but we've had 3 games. So, I mean, that's how intense this season is. The game against Venezia, what do you think is going to do for us?
Well, it's really interesting because I've got comments on both games, both Venezia and Arsenal. But Venezia, for me, I've watched for different reasons. Quite a lot of Udinese this season. Been very impressed with them, especially with the likes of Lorenzo Luca, who's been fantastic. And I was surprised to see Venezia pull off that result. And I think that's a warning for Inter that we can't just go there and expect, to bring them here and expect to win. It's going to be very hard work. I think the set pieces as well, they're pretty good. Even though, ironically, they're quite weak as well at some points. So that's going to be a really tough one. I think Venezia, if we can approach it in the correct way and hit them with a quick tempo, I think we have to start with a high tempo approach to that game. And I think that we've obviously got enough qualities to beat them. And not to steal your question, but I was actually at Preston versus Arsenal last night in the cup.
Oh, you were? I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and I was. They played there a few reserve players, but I was.
Yeah,
wow.
Because cup games, it's a bit different, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, they were, but the way they move the ball around, I think that's going to be one of probably the most entertaining games of the season. I think Inter again, the tempo is going to be key, but they have got some players who can really. They're very calm and very quick moving. And I think it's going to be a very interesting game. But I still think Inter again. With Arsenal as well, there's a lot of injuries at the moment. Saka's not back correctly. Odegaard's probably going to be out. You're looking at also the fact of Calafiori, of course. Timber's not fully fit. Didn't look great last night. So I think Arsenal have got a few problems injury-wise. And I think that it's a good time for Inter to play them.
Yeah, and then as you just seen on those graphics, we got Napoli as well after that. So it couldn't be more intense than that. So that's it for today. I think we have covered a lot of topics for you to discuss and say what we did well. And now you can go and find out if Richard Old is actually a footballer. No. Bye-bye, Richard. See you next time. Goodbye.
Ciao for now. Grazie.